I took that gamble, took that risk, sold the agency when it was making a lot of money, got out, and then in 2022 sat on the scene, and of course ChatGPT rolls out. But when it first came out, and you may know this story, Jonathan, I was known as the anti-AI writer because
Makes sense.
yeah, the content that came out had no source of truth. It was not fact checked. So we're now doing 3 to 4 tweets a day as of the last week and a half, which is the only time we've tested this strategy. Each tweet is nearing around 25,000 impressions, over 300 responses,
That's
and leads
amazing.
every single time I post on X. If you train the LLM on what good content looks like, because of the data points it has available, and because of just it's a machine, which is infinitely faster, better, safer, usually than a human if it's the right machine, then you'll get output that actually rivals the best writer. 2025 is going to be considered by these tech leaders year one, which is the year when the people, the businesses, the teams not adapting actually start to fall by the wayside.
Hi, and welcome to the AI Transformation Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Mast, and I am thrilled to have with me today Julia McCoy. If you don't know Julia, you've probably been under a rock, but Julia is an absolute amazing influencer and voice in the AI space. And Julia and I had the opportunity to meet at an event we were both speaking at down in Mexico this past summer. And as a result, I've got to know her and her husband and just really am excited to chat about what's going on, and especially for Julia to share a little bit about a new chapter she just entered literally in the last few weeks. So Julia, versus me butchering everything, tell us a little bit about yourself, and please tell us about the new venture, because I am so excited to hear about that.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for having me here, Jonathan. It's an honor. And just a shout out back to you. If you guys don't already know, and you should if you're tuning into this podcast, Jonathan's amazing, one of the best AI influencers I personally follow. So got to give him a big shout out. But as
Thank
for
you.
my story, absolutely well deserved. So I started in writing back in 2011. I had the chance to get in when the freelance market was, at the time Upwork was Odesk, and there was, I think,
Mm,
11,000 gigs total. And so I was like, oh, I've walked into something that's lucrative. But what happened was in the next 10 years, it grew into what is now nearing a $600 billion industry, and that's content marketing. So crazy to think how much growth has had. But if you compare that to AI, which Jensen just said on stage in Japan is going to be worth $100 trillion. I mean, everything pales in comparison, right? It's
it
the elephant in
does.
the room. It's why you're talking about it. It's why we're here. But my journey has always revolved around technology. I've been fascinated with the use of it as it came to amplifying my content. It's like, okay, we have all these channels, we have all these technology ways to distribute all these different tools. How do we use it to really amplify great content? So I always came from the place of really good content, because I think that if you add the tools and you add the amplification, but the content is terrible, you're doing yourself a complete disservice and your audience as
100%.
well. Yes. And so the content has to be good. So I always came from that place. And from 2011 to 2021, which is when I sold my agency, my husband and I grew the agency. He did all the technical, led the project management of building out an e-commerce platform where we handled over, gosh, I think it was 70,000 content orders across that near decade. And by the time we sold, had 100 people working for me, a pretty large team company. And this was 2021. ChatGPT was a year from coming out, but I knew that the GPT itself was going to change the game. Just what I saw
Hmm.
coming in 2.5 and 3, it was like, okay, this is something. This is really something I think you can hang a hat on and say, this could be the future of content. And so
Hmm.
I took that gamble, took that risk, sold the agency when it was making a lot of money, got out. And then in 2022, sat on the scene. And of course, ChatGPT rolls out. But when it first came out, and you may know this story, Jonathan, you saw it on stage, you saw me talk about it. I was known as the anti AI writer because
Makes sense.
yeah, the content that came out had no source of truth. It was not fact checked. It was just basically regurgitating. LLMs are scraping data and they're
Hmm.
detecting and predicting. And of course, now we have Search GPT and citations occurring. So there's been a lot of evolution. But at the time, I was just like, oh, if you're swiping this and putting it on your site, you better be hiring a writer, and you're probably putting yourself
100%.
back. So that was my stance. And then in January 2023, all that changed when I found a tool that actually did the scraping, the collecting of facts, put that into the content. And I decided to work for that tool. And I did that for almost 2 years, January 2023 to October 2024. And then, as Jonathan referenced, in October, I decided to start my own AI firm called First Movers, which is my solution to a problem I've been seeing the past year, especially. And I think going forward in 2025, we'll see more of the need for this, where in First Movers, we're super custom with whatever we recommend with AI. And we look at every situation on a highly personal level to that brand, that author, that entrepreneur, that publication. And we say, how do we build you a copy bot that mimics your exact voice? How do we recommend stringing together multiple bots and giving you a solution that gives you a push button type of environment? Because I think as these systems evolve, and especially with Operator coming out from OpenAI in
Hmm.
January of 2025, we'll see agentic behavior become the norm. And that's when a lot of work magic begins to happen, when you really start to save remarkable time. And since starting my agency, I call it an agency, but really it's an integration firm, and this October, we've tested everything. I'm a big believer, don't sell anything unless you've tested it, proven it yourself, which is also why I'm a
Hmm.
fan of you, Jonathan. You do the exact same at a very high level. We're all out there seeing you test in public. I love it in your Facebook group. And so one thing we did was we asked, how can we automate Julia's entire marketing with all the processes we're about to sell clients? So we built this copy bot through Claude, and every single tweet posted on my X profile, which, by the way, in 10 years, I've never been consistent on X. I've just never had the time. So we're now doing 3 to 4 tweets a day as of the last week and a half, which is the only time we've tested this strategy. Each tweet is nearing around 25,000 impressions, over 300 responses,
That's
and leads
amazing.
every single time I post on X. And that, again, hasn't happened in 10 years of marketing. And that's all bot written tweets.
Oh, I love it. I love it. But my guess is it's also very much on brand. I know you well, and I know you've got your brand incredibly well defined. You know your audience. And I think
Yeah.
that's what's so exciting about AI. And I think we agree on this. We've not really talked about it, but AI can be an absolute train wreck for content if it's not well trained and it's not well run. And where you started at when you were like the anti-AI writer, in many cases, I think is still appropriate, even though I'm an AI nut and I know
Mm.
you're an incredible expert in what you do. For so many people, I believe that they look at AI as the easy button. We remember the Office
Mm.
Max or Office Depot commercial with the red easy button, and we go, oh, AI is that easy button. When in reality, it's an easier button. And
Ooh,
and
that's good.
everybody wants to press the easy button and go, oh, it's done. I want to, just like you said, I want to start posting to X, which I still call
Mm.
Twitter. Sorry, guys. It's just I'm older than Julia, so I don't change gears as fast. But, I want to do that. And I love what you're doing there. But again, I want to go back to what I've read and what I've seen on X and knowing you, that's going to be incredibly on brand. It's going to be incredibly targeted at the audience that you want to reach. And therefore, when AI
Mm.
is creating that, it really does reflect you because it's been trained on how to do that, as opposed to the
Yes.
average Joe or average Sally out there who brings in and says, oh, well, Julia said she was doing that on X, so I'm going to have ChatGPT write all my tweets. The problem is when it's not defined, then we end up with that train wreck. I'd love to get your
Mm.
perspective on that difference and what's involved. How do we explain that to the average business owner out there who's thinking about, okay, 2025 as this comes out, literally, 2025 is here. What do they need to understand about training that AI model to help use it for them? Anything you can share?
Yes, absolutely. Well, on one hand, I think it's a lot easier than you think, but it's also probably not what you think.
Yes, so
And
true.
so, right? And so what I mean by that is, on the easier side, these tools are incredible. They're so simple and easy to sign up for. ChatGPT Plus is, I think, $20 a month. Claude is another $20 a month, 20 to 25. And what you can do with these tools is remarkable.
Mhm.
So those are frontier LLMs. And what I've learned is whenever you're creating content that you want to go really far, whether it's an email, a social media post, a blog post, you name it, LinkedIn post, you really want to train it before you prompt it. And that's where I think a lot of people go wrong. They don't give it background training. And so I know a mutual friend of ours, Jeff Hunter, is a big fan of
Hmm.
this approach as well. And one thing that he does that we've started doing on top of my strategies that I thought was brilliant was he'll actually upload books on
Hmm.
viral training formulas as training data to these models. And then instantly that model has a refined 100 plus formulas on which to draw from to produce good content. And the interesting void that I see that we can actually solve with AI if we approach it correctly, we train it first. And like I said, it can be pretty easy to do that if you know, okay, I need to gather the right data. I need to gather examples of highly performing posts in my
Hmm.
industry, or if it's me. Not everyone has a background of 10 years and 9 books. So, it's better sometimes to pull from examples in your industry that you love and actually train it on that. And then when you're prompting it in that prompt, that's where you need to make sure you're adding in personal, subjective experience. And that is what
Hmm.
really dials in like those X posts. If you see, it's very, it's thoughts you're not going to find. There's a lot of
Right.
thoughts that break the norm, and that's subjective. But if you apply that structure of training the LMs on, okay, this is what a good X post looks like. This is what a good LinkedIn
Hmm.
post looks like in my industry. Get industry specific. Then what you'll actually be able to do, and this is where it gets really magical, is you'll bypass that entire problem that most marketing departments have, which is they don't have a good writer and they don't know what good
Exactly.
content looks like. So if you train the LLM on what good content looks like because of the data points it has available, and because of just it's a machine, which is infinitely faster, better, safer, usually than a human if it's the right machine,
Hmm.
then you'll get output that actually rivals the best writer. And imagine like going out and trying to find that and add that talent to your team. Like it would take you infinite amounts of trouble, struggle, maybe wasted money to get to the end point of, okay, I have the world's best copywriter. But what if you could train an LLM to be the world's best copywriter for you? And that's
Hmm.
the revolution I see in the room with marketing teams. Like none of these people know what good content looks like because they're not copywriters with that rich background of experience that it takes to be a really good copywriter to produce content that gets tens of thousands of impressions. So we can bypass that by training these LLMs on what that looks like. And that's amazing, but it's also been a struggle because we've had some marketing teams that they couldn't be convinced, even though their impressions were in the toilet, they couldn't be convinced that they weren't good writers.
Yes. Oh,
That's the
yeah.
only problem.
It reminds me so much of you and I have seen these posts, and I know people hate them, but it's so true. It's if you're not getting any engagement, maybe it's because your content stinks.
Mm.
And I'm
Ding,
not going to say
ding.
that's always the case, but I would say 9 times out of 10, it is the case.
Yeah.
You think it's great. You and I have both worked with business owners who, despite logic and despite facts, are adamant that they need to do it their way because that's the way everybody thinks when it's how they think, but they're not their customer. They're not the prospect they're trying
Mm.
to reach.
Yeah.
And so by sharing it their way, they're simply not appealing to their audience. And then they wonder, why is this marketing not working? Why is the phone not ringing off the hook? Why do I have not have people asking me to book appointments with me? Because they're literally not connecting with their audience. And I think what you said there about AI is so critical. You mentioned Jeff. Jeff's taught me a lot as well as you have. And that ability to train it on that data, the ability to, take a
Mm.
book that you've had and, upload that book or at least upload a synopsis, the relevant parts of that book, and be able to share that are so incredibly relevant. You and I also both know Ken Moskowitz, and Ken has
Mm.
taken 40
Yes.
years of his training and put it into a document. And thankfully, I have that document and invested in it. But it's a prime example when it comes to writing ad copy, something Jonathan, by the way, stinks at. I'm not an ad guy, but I can go to that trained model that's now been trained on all of Ken's ad experience. And Ken's, if you don't know him, is an ad guru. And the quality of the content has been amazing because now I can create really good ads in seconds or minutes, as opposed to never having an idea how to create those ads, or like you said, trusting a copywriter that also has no idea how to write those ads, and then wondering, why are
Mhm.
my ads not converting? So I think there's so many things like that that happen. Talk to me a little bit about one of the things that I know I've been noticing the last couple days, and hopefully by the time this goes live, by the way, full disclosure, we are pre-recording this. So as we're recording this, things could change and models could change as we go through the holidays here. But I've been seeing a huge issue with ChatGPT, Claude, and somewhat with Perplexity in server loads. In other words, all of a sudden we're
Mm.
getting, server error. I can't do that. Claude, I swear, every time I go there now, won't give me extensive answers. I have to use their limited answers, even though I'm on the paid plans. You spend a lot of time looking and keeping your finger on the future, what's happening in the industry. What do you see happening in this area, and what do you think what do you think we're going to see as we go into 2025 as it relates to these what have been somewhat ongoing issues with server loads and capacity, because of course they're getting stressed out. Lots of people are using these servers. What do you see happening in 2025? And is this something that you think business owners need to be concerned about as we rely more and more on those AI models?
Yes. Well, that is definitely a loaded question because, like you said, I have been studying the future of this. That's something I'm a little obsessed with. I call it the rabbit holes on YouTube. And so the
Hmm.
future of this is unbelievable. We have the convergence of the natural evolution through human discovery, human ingenuity. We have this convergence of multiple things occurring that it's hard to realize just the acceleration of all of this. And you'll hear like, oh, we're in an AI winter. Oh, these models are falling behind. But the truth is, like, that's just a little bit of buffer lag before the next big jump. And so I think the solution that we're going to see to solve server capacity, load issues. We're going to see energy breakthroughs and we're going to see things like brand new supercomputers or brand new ways to process data
Hmm.
that give us like infinite capabilities. Like for example, we have left the CPU era, which started in the 60s, where we only
Yeah.
did individual tasks. And now we're on GPUs, that's a very specific way to process things. But because NVIDIA has built something called CUDA libraries, they've now
Hmm.
meshed and bridge that gap where GPUs can handle parallel processing at the same time. And now we have Google with TPUs, which is
Hmm.
tensor processing unit, which is just for AI. And so we're going to see the technology, both the hardware and the software components catch up. And then the background of that, of course, is the energy, which is where, when Trump sat down with Elon Musk, he's like, oh, it takes that much energy to power all this?
Hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're going to need energy breakthroughs. And, we have some of the world's brightest minds on these things right now. And I think we're getting closer. IBM, for example, kind of pivoted just to quantum. Like that's not
Hmm.
known, or that, of course. But
Absolutely.
they've devoted a lot of their older resources that they weren't using to quantum, and they have quantum clients in the cloud right now. They're testing this at a super high commercial level. And so, like, we have things that haven't really been rolled out yet that were fiction just half a decade ago, that were complete science fiction. And these things are actually becoming reality. Back in the 50s, like we were drawing neural nets on paper and we called them thinking machines, and people called
Hmm.
those people crazy. And now
Yes.
we're actually processing that. That's a neural net inside a computer. And so whenever we look at ChatGPT, same thing for me. It's a lot of times been going down. Claude's been limiting me. We know that that is a temporary problem, and it's almost beyond our touch points that the solution is going to occur because it's going to come from Microsoft. It's going to come from Google. It's going to come from NVIDIA going to Japan, connecting with Japan's largest billionaire and saying, we're going to build AI factories, which just happened this November. And
Yeah.
from that AI factory, we're going to have a supercomputer. Oh, and by the way, he just did that in India too. So we have these occurrences happening in technology that are going to solve all the processing problems. And then the background problem of energy, I think, will be resolved, whether it's through nuclear or quantum. or some other way to take the current energy we have and just harness it in a totally different way. I think that what we're going to see in 2025, especially when agentic behavior starts to really radically change work itself, we're going to start to see mass adaptation, like you were saying, Jonathan, before the call. I completely agree. It's going to be a big year for that adaptation. And I think we're going to see, coincidentally, the breakthroughs come from the energy realm that we need to power all of this. Because, like I said, if we have the world's brightest minds all collectively working on the same thing, I mean, it's just a matter of time. It's going to happen.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm excited about it. I've always been one of those really happy capitalists that believes that
Mm,
the market will drive the things to happen that we need. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be pain through it, but there's pain no matter what when we grow. And I absolutely agree with you. I think we're going to see some just monumental shifts in both computing processes and how we do things in computers as well as in
yeah.
energy, and I think both of those are going to be tied together. I know I'm very, very positive on it, even though I complain a bit about the fact that yesterday I was setting up a new custom GPT for a course I'm offering, and literally it took me 26 times before it would save it because it gave me a server error. So I get the frustration, I'm
Yeah.
there, but I absolutely, like you, believe these problems are temporary. And to me, as a business owner, it's indicative of what types of opportunities AI is bringing to the table. We've never been in a situation before where, I mean, when you think of it, and you've paid attention as I have, companies that historically have been nuclear is the worst thing that could ever happen, that now
Mm,
are looking to embrace it and bring it back into the 2025 essentially, and say, hang on, we need this because we need to have more energy. I'm not saying it's the right choice or the wrong choice. I'm not here to have that political discussion, but it's so interesting to see that. And I agree with you. I think we're going to see actually some entirely new ways of doing things because now
yes.
there's a need for it. There's money behind it to drive it. There's a desire for it. And, I'm excited because that means maybe we don't have to be as reliant on coal and things like that we have been. And I think that's really cool. Do I know what it's going to look like? No, I'm not that smart, but I have total confidence in the really smart people in the world that they're going to figure this out, and that these problems we're running into now are not sufficient reason to go, no, I should wait a little longer. Because I do believe, going back to business, and I'd love your thoughts on this, Julia, if they haven't fully embraced AI as we head into 2025, 2025, I believe, is going to be a year that's going to separate the doers in AI from everybody else. And that doesn't
Mm,
mean you have to be creating AI systems to sell, but as a business, whether you're a roofer, a chiropractor, or a multi-billion-dollar corporation, if you're not implementing AI in your business and especially with your teams, I think that your competition will, and those that embrace it are going to literally leap ahead of everybody else in 2025. That's my thought. I'd love to get your thought on that, especially on the part about not just implementing it as a business, but implementing it with teams. What are your thoughts on that? And in my crazy, as my cracked and cloudy crystal ball looks forward to this in 2025.
You are not crazy at all, Jonathan. You're 100% on the money. I mean, one of the reasons I started First Movers in October was this idea of I wanted to help people identify as something. And that's where the name First Movers came
Mm-hmm.
from. Because if you're not thinking in terms of being a first mover, you're literally about to lose out next year. I've heard experts say I have the chance to, through my podcast I host, and through the books I co author that are going to come out in the next few years, I have the chance to hear what's happening on the inside of the founders in Silicon Valley, of people that have worked, been on Lex Freeman's podcast, people that I can't say their names, but big circles. And what's crazy is this is something that will revolutionize every industry. It's important not to think of it as the emergence of technology, but
Mm-hmm.
really something that's going to change every single industry. And so this year, 2024, was called by a lot of these people in these circles, it was called year zero of AI because
Yeah.
it was the year where we were kind of playing with AI. And so 2025 is going to be considered by these tech leaders year one, which is the year when the people, the businesses, the teams not adapting actually start to fall by the wayside. And their
Mm-hmm.
competitor, that is the first mover in the room, gets picked over and over. as a choice, a better choice to do business with. We went from, oh, AI is sketchy or it's a trend. We went from that to, in 2025, we're going to have this thought process where consumers are going to pick their technology based on how well
Yes.
their solution, based on how well they're playing with this new technology, because they know that technology of AI creates efficiency. And when you know that versus, oh, this is just a trend, is this another NFT gorilla? When you know the difference, and consumers,
Hmm.
they are starting to know it. When you know the difference, then you know, okay, the better choice for me is the company that's tapping into the power of AI. It's almost going to be like, I'm going to walk into a house with electricity, or am I going to walk into a house that isn't wired up yet? Like, it's going to be
Oh,
that
it's so true.
drastic of a difference. The businesses using AI are the businesses with their lights on. The businesses not using AI are the businesses that left their lights unwired and there's no power grid. It's going to be brutal.
No, I agree with you. I think, and I do think 2025 is going to be that year. That brings with it an interesting question that I hear a lot, and I'd love your perspective on it. And that's the business owner that says, "Okay, I've played with this a little bit. I've tried ChatGPT. I've got it on my phone, and it's neat and it's fun. But is it too late? Maybe I waited too long." As we head into 2025, is it
Mm.
too late to get on that AI bandwagon, or is now the time to be doing it from your perspective, Julia?
That's a great question. I'm sure people listening have that in mind. Well, I'm going to quote the Chinese proverb. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago.
Thank you. Oh, I love this. I love
The
this.
next best time is now.
Thank you. I can't tell how many times I've said that. I couldn't agree with you more. That's so funny. We've never shared that, by the way, folks. I had no idea Julia was going to share that, but I love that.
Well, we think alike. I mean, it's why I'm a big fan of yours, Jonathan. But yeah, if you're thinking, oh no, am I too late? The best thing I could recommend is, besides playing with these tools, ChatGPT on your phone, absolutely start learning beyond that,
Hmm.
beyond what these tools can do in your, hobby perspective, which is really where a lot of people come in right now. They're looking at it. This is a fun hobby. I get to talk to ChatGPT. The difference between the people that are going to win next year are the people that are going to get serious now. So by
Yeah.
serious, I mean you're looking up tutorials, you're taking Jonathan's courses, you're in his Facebook group, studying his practices, you're hiring integrators to leapfrog you forward and show you, okay, here's what a custom trained AI model could do for your business. And here's exactly how to do it. Imagine starting 2025 with that. Oh my God.
Mm,
You'd
I
be so far
absolutely.
ahead.
Well, and again, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I love that proverb because I think it's so true. Yes, would it have been better in a perfect world that you started with AI in 2024? Yeah, it would have been. But you're not too late in my mind to start in 2025 because
Yeah,
we're still
that's
going to
right.
see a ton of people that are not using it. I saw some stats recently, and like most entrepreneurs, I'm going to make these up. They're close, but I don't remember the exact
Mhm.
number. So bear with me on that. But I saw that, of all of the people in North America, and I think it was US, Canada, and Mexico, like 83% of us say that we're using AI. But when they then followed up on that to say, how many of you are actually using it regularly and using it for work, it was like 11%. It was
No.
amazing that now again,
Wow.
I may be a little off on the numbers, so don't quote me on those. Have you seen anything like that? And I admit I agree with that from what I see seat of the pants as I talk to people. I talk to lots of people who are like, oh yeah, I play around with ChatGPT and I've maybe tried Perplexity and a few things like that. I know you speak even more often than I do, so you're talking to people about that. I see that, and that strikes me as being very much the reality of what I'm seeing, that about 10% of the people I'm talking to are
Mhm.
actually using it on a regular basis. That means to me that there's this massive opportunity right now for businesses to jump on this and take advantage of it. The other thing that I think is so cool, and you and I have not chatted about this, but is the impact I believe it can have on the teams that we work with. We know that,
Mm.
you and I were just talking as you're getting started, obviously you're expanding your team. I've recently expanded my team, and we're still both small companies in the big picture. But we also know that those team members we have help us make who we are because it allows us to deliver on the promises that you and I, as the leaders, are making and the things that we're laying out
Mm.
there. I think for companies, one thing that so few companies are understanding is that empowering their teams with AI is actually going to make a better work environment
Mm.
for the team. In other words, I don't know anybody that thinks they have more time in the week than they do tasks. I'm sure there's somebody out there. They probably work for the government. My little soapbox, I'll get off that. But outside of that, I don't know anybody that thinks, oh, I've got more time than I do tasks to get completed. And
Mm.
imagine if we could take the average worker in America, in North America, Mexico, wherever, and save them just 30 minutes a day by using AI. And I personally believe 30 minutes a day would be absolute cakewalk. No problem. We could probably double or triple that by just a
Mhm.
little bit of work. I'd love to hear your thought as first movers on that. But I think that's what hasn't been talked about enough. We've all talked about it from a business process standpoint, but I think we're missing a huge opportunity to see what this could do to our teams, both in freeing them up, improving their productivity, and then giving our team members, especially the best team members, the ability to do what they're best at instead of doing these automated tasks that are maybe urgent, but not important in the big picture. What are your thoughts about that as we see AI with team integration? Is that relevant? Am I too far ahead of things? Are we going to see that delayed a little bit? What are your thoughts in general on that, Julia?
Oh, yeah. Well, once again, you're spot on. I think that that is a huge opportunity. And what's interesting is, since opening the doors of First Movers 3 weeks ago, we've had over 50 calls booked. I can't believe it.
Awesome.
Yes, blowing up. And the scenarios that we've seen so far and the ones even coming on the calendar are definitely team situations. We have a couple solopreneurs, but we also have more business owners with large teams in different industries. And some of them actually have, I mean, the team size is totally different. We've got some with just two in their team, and then we've got some with large teams. And so what I'm seeing early on is pretty freaking incredible. And I think it's like you hit on something so important, Jonathan, with this whole point. I think it's really the lost opportunity that no one is tapping into yet. And when that does start to get, to use ChatGPT's word, unlocked,
Yes. Yeah.
we're going to see, I mean, we're going to see businesses just leap forward. Like, where did that business come out of? And now they're going viral and they have tens of millions of impressions and their products are flying off the shelves. And when you find out the back end of that is like one person and then AI processes that, I think we're going to start to see that happen more and more. And so, what I see in the team environment is, the businesses that are coming to us, they're usually overloaded, just like you said, there's more tasks than time. That is the scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking at it going, okay, how much time do you spend on content? How much time do you spend on strategy? How much time do you spend on maintaining good SEO for these websites? How much time do you spend on getting clients? How much time we go through the list? And it's like, there's these people are, first of all, they're usually very bright, smart people. They started something that is
Yep.
successful, has some traction, but they cannot get it even close to where they want it because they're one person. And the way they're looking at ChatGPT is, well, let me just try to prompt it and get good content. And then they usually get frustrated and they actually walk away
I
and
know.
they
Oh,
don't
I've
even
been
use
there.
AI. Yeah, you've been there. And so we're able to radically change their complete perspective. There's a question I now ask on these calls that I've seen really, to use ChatGPT's word again, unlocks their
Mm-hmm.
brain and their perspective. And I asked them, what would it look like if your best writer who's on the call right now, who's like overwhelmed between all these websites, all this content, can't figure out AI, what if he was matched up to all these custom bots for each site that produce content? And I showed them how easy it can be, literally drop in a keyword and you can train these GPTs, you can train Claude, you can train these frontier models, like we were talking about at the beginning of the call, to produce such dialed in content. Your audience would never guess, just like when you scroll my Twitter, your audience would never guess that that's not coming from your brand and that was
Exactly.
99% by robot. Oh, and by the way, if your writer edited, your writer is, 10-year expert, amazing writer. If that writer just edits 2 words, well, don't don't underestimate the power of that, because just a few tweaks on something so highly refined coming out of a very well trained AI bot is the difference sometimes with that content just going the next mile. But this is the beauty of it. When that writer just spends 2 minutes to refine that one sentence that is that call to action that drives the traffic to their site, Arguably a very important piece of the whole thing. If they're just spending 2 minutes, because that's what we've reduced their workload to with
Hmm.
AI, I mean, what begins to happen? And so that's where we focused on was that end point of all that time saved. Because the how, they're hiring first movers to do, so they're not even going to have to worry about it, which was like music to their ears. And we're going to show them this process. And that's where like expertise, like the AI consultant, the AI integrator, probably going to be the hottest commodity in 2025. But going back to that point, so, I asked them, imagine when this writer of yours only works 2 hours a day. And all three of them, like these are two of them are the founders, the third is the writer, very smart, top level
Hmm.
people. They all sat there and they just like, you could see like this visible shift, like the load on their shoulders, they straightened up. They were breathing deeper. Their eyes were glowing. Just the picture of that much time saved. And if you paint that with your teams and then you go get an expert to come in and show them how, which to me, in my expert opinion, is your best solution when you have a situation where that team doesn't know what the heck they're doing, because you could give them the tools, you could kind of leave them alone in that Wild West and try to let them figure it out. Or you could literally just say, hey, here's an expert that I'm going to pay to train you on the right process. Bam, your
Exactly.
team leapfrogs ahead. But if you paint that picture with your team before you go, do the AI integration process, get the tools, get the courses, if you paint that picture, like, guys, what would it look like? What would you be able to do for the company if you didn't have to spend this much time on and talk about the thing they hate the most?
Thank you. Yes.
Your team will adapt. Just saying.
No, I think again we're spot on as we see that through. I think a very similar filter and where things are headed in 2025. Last question for you as we get the plane ready to kind of come in for a landing. As I steal a phrase that Sean Cannell always uses from Think Media, as businesses are looking forward to 2025 and they're listening to us maybe and going, all right, it's time. I need to, best time was a year ago, but now the next best time is today to integrate that. I often see, we talked about this a little bit pre-call, one of two things happens. Those business owners and those leadership teams get so excited. They go, we're going to do it all and we're going to do it all today, which is not generally the best plan. Or they go, I'm still going to stick my head in the sand and I'm going to wait a little bit longer. I
Mm.
think the best plan is to put a plan in place and get some quick wins, create those just things you were just talking about, create some of those quick wins, get the team on board. As you said, your team is going to be on board when they realize their jobs are not at risk and that they're going to actually be able to add more value. Your investors, your clients, you mentioned earlier, and I couldn't agree more. We're seeing it right now. Clients are literally looking, my background's in the agency world. They're looking for agencies now that are leveraging AI and they're actually willing to pay more money
Choo.
because of the fact that they know those tools are going to bring so much value into the process. So anyway, long
Wow.
stories, we put all of that together. What would you recommend if a business owner says, all right, we're walking into 2025 as they listen to this, hopefully for the first, but not the last time? What should they be looking at in the next 3 months, the next 91 days? What types of things should they be trying to achieve with AI to build that strong foundation and to truly create something that will leap ahead of their competition? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. Just from the work I'm doing in First Movers, I can give you some pretty good insights there. So the first thing I would recommend is to sit down. Maybe this is with your team, somebody in marketing, whether that's you, a team member, and make a list of all the bottlenecks. What are the things that stop you from, example, publishing content? Is it a
Hmm.
lack of team members? Is it a lack of a streamlined process? Is it a lack of, you need a writer? What is it? Make that list. What is stopping you from that endpoint of whatever goal you have? And so sometimes if you're like, well, I'm really confused, start with a goal. Well, what's your goal? Is it
Yeah.
100,000 hits a month? Well, you need content. You
Hmm.
need consistent content. Okay, how do we produce that? Oh, well, that's a bottleneck. We don't have a content team. Okay, that's your biggest bottleneck, content team. So then from those bottlenecks, you figure out what to automate. If I know that my bottleneck is I don't have a content team and we're not producing content regularly, then I know, okay, I need to automate that process. How can I do that? And so one of the best ways to think, is in terms of get as sophisticated with this as you can if you want to win 2025. If you
Yes.
don't want to win 2025, just get ChatGPT and play around and and have that perspective. But if you really want to win, think about sophisticated processes where maybe you're bringing in some make integrations and you're connecting a news aggregator built with AI to trigger the creation of that article. I mean, that's next
Hmm.
level. But that is
Absolutely.
how to leapfrog ahead. So, how sophisticated can you get it? So, number one, what are your goals? Which brings you to what are your bottlenecks? And then from there, how sophisticated can you get? What's a complete streamlined automation solution? And that's what we're doing a lot of at First Movers, which is it's number one, it's blowing people's mind that that was even possible because they came to us with
Yes.
what they thought was a pipe dream. And we're like, that's not a pipe dream. You can do that with AI, and we know how to do it. And so, if you approach AI with that perspective, well, what is it capable of that I don't know? And it takes laying aside ego, laying aside beliefs that you might have about it,
Hmm.
and just being open to the realm of possibility. Because the realm of possibility in 2025, I'm telling you, is incredible. There was one business we talked to, they had a ton of proprietary information. They were a research company for huge companies like Disney, helped them decide on the best ads to display, had a ton of research documentation. So they had all this original documentation on file, but no way to serve it they want to do a paid subscription model to their end clients. And
Hmm.
so the idea we had was let's just build a AI knowledge base out of all those docs and then layer a chatbot interface. So your
Hmm.
clients can literally go, hey, and maybe the chatbot looks like your founder's face. Hey, founder, hey Joe, tell me what Disney ad was hottest between this specific date. And in a second, your customers have data that would have taken your team how much time to sift through, find, send back. You've automated that whole thing. And now that's also a new product offering. So if you can think in
Exactly.
terms like that, that is going to be, I think, the winners of next year.
I think great advice and really just tremendous insights across the board. I think you and I could carry on this conversation for hours. In fact, maybe we'll have to do a step two, just as we chat with people. I think there's so
I would
many
love that.
questions out there from business about what to do and how to do it. And it reminds me a lot of a conversation I had about an hour ago with somebody that's helping me out with some automations, and he's like, "Well, Jonathan, just tell me what you need." And I'm like, "Part of the problem is I'm an AI guy, not an automation guy. So I don't necessarily think in terms of automation. So I'm not sure. I almost need somebody to come in and take a look at what I'm doing and go, hang on, here are the opportunities I see for that." And I think for many businesses, that's why somebody like First Movers makes so much sense. It's because they need somebody to really look at what they're doing and then give them advice on where AI fits into that. And I think that's also just one of those areas I'm so excited to see you moving into because I know that's an area you're so good at. So, if
Well,
people
thank
want to reach
you.
out and connect with you, Julia, what's the best way for them to do so?
Yes. Firstmovers.ai. We have a consultation form. It's completely free. If you're like, well, Julia, can your team look at my processes? What I'm building in this team is very different. There's no sales team whatsoever. It's all AI integrators, people with deep experience that would be on that first call, actually going, okay, here's exactly how we can automate that. We had one person, a founder from the logistics industry, he filled out the form and he's like, I have no idea what I need, but I know I need AI.
I love it.
If that's where you're at, we can help you. So just saying. So firstmovers.ai. And then for me personally, you can find me my content bot on X.
I love it.
It's really me posting, I promise, but it's, AI writing everything. It's amazing. And then on YouTube, I produce a lot of regular content where I look ahead to the future because I think that AI will cross into not just our work, but our well being and our life as well.
Mm,
So I look
hmm.
into that on YouTube under my name, Julia McCoy. And I'd love to come back,
Awesome.
Jonathan, and
Well, I'm
have
in.
you
Yeah,
on
we
my
should definitely do
podcast,
that.
vice versa. So
No, let's make sure we do it. It's always good to have these conversations, and I love to hear the perspective. So thank you for the time today. I know you've been so busy getting everything up and running, and I'm
mm,
just so thankful. As we
thank you.
record this, it's just before the holidays, so although this will be published about the time, have a great holiday season, and I cannot wait to see what 2025 has in store for all of us. I think it's just Again, I'm an old guy compared to you, but it's so exciting to see the pace of change and
Yes.
what's coming and the opportunities that it
Yes.
brings. Just
Oh,
huge.
so
So
much. Well,
thank you.
you're an optimist like me, which I love. The world needs more of us.
Oh yeah, you got to be glass half full or half empty. I'd rather be half full, all day. If you've
Yes.
stuck with us, we're so grateful to have you. I would love it if you'd like the podcast, give us your thumbs up, tell us who else you'd like to see. Julie has been an amazing guest, and we've had some others. We'd love to get your thoughts too. If you have anybody, let us know, and we will see you on the other side, everyone. Make it a great day. Bye-bye.